Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Hospitality Hints, our usual slot on a Wednesday, 10 a.m. Our usual slot. It's become a usual slot, this, isn't it? Look, who I've got next to Mr. Mark Daniels. Marky boy, how you doing? Mark, how you doing,
Not,
sir? Yeah,
Hello, Nigel. How are you? Not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
very good, very good. We'll hear lots of gold from Mark in a minute about CRMs and data and what the problem is in the industry. But let me just introduce myself. My name's Nigel Mann. Basically, to all those guys, thank you for contacting me. If you want to contact me, obviously, it's Nigel Mann. That's Mann. Contact me on LinkedIn. Thanks for your DM message and things like that. Obviously, the new email address, website isn't up yet, guys, but the email address is live. So it's nigel.mann@hospitalityrecovery.co.uk. Welcome to all the people on LinkedIn, Facebook Live, YouTube, basically Spotify, Google, and where you are listening to. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you listen to the show. And welcome to the people listening to the podcast Last Man Standing. Thank you to all the people that basically listen to that. Please keep listening. Guys, please come in, say hello. I can see some people coming in. I'll come and say hello to you in a minute. So please, who does a live show and isn't all gushy and say hello? So, we're absolutely interactive. Come in, say hello, and say hello to myself and Mark. And also we want your comments. So, yep, guys, in the feed, just basically putting there a little cue before it and basically all the way through. I love Wednesday morning because this is the show where I speak to people in the industry about specific hospitality issues. But first of all, before we come to Mark, let me just go and say hello to a few people. A few people can come through. Who we got? Kieran. Yeah, morning, Kieran. How are you? Matthew's going to come in. Yeah, morning, Matthew. Matthew Embleton's listening and all the way through. Right, let me get straight into the problem. Yeah, and the problem is this, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, let me just, very rude of me, let me just say hello to Guy. Yeah, morning, Guy. Morning, Nigel. Morning, Mark. Morning, Guy. Thank you for listening, guys. Yeah, morning. Usual listeners, yeah, all the way through. So let me get on to the problem. Yeah, the usual problem is this, isn't it? It's just we've got all this data. Yeah, we got basically, it's low customer retention rates, isn't it? It's disjointed, disorganized information, complicated tracking and reporting. Yeah, inconsistent tracking across customer data, slow growth. But basically, what we're going to talk about today is getting the value out of that data. So, yeah, I mean, we've all got this problem, haven't we? It's just where do you start with this? Because, as a manager, I've sat on boards, I've sat on, directors and stuff like that. And usually the sales manager comes in and says, Nigel, we need this great CRM. So, and I always think, God, that sounds expensive. Yeah, sounds complicated. So let's go over to a guy that basically can help us out here. Yeah, Mr. Mark Daniels. Yeah, who says across the bottom there,
Hopefully,
Mark.
can help you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Mark, you're the man. I mean, let me just put up at the bottom. There you go. That's what he does. Yeah, he's a communications digital marketing specialist. And well done on your podcast, sir. Desperately seeking salary. I mean, fellow podcaster. I do like to speak to fellow podcasters these days. It's just. But Mark, I mean, there's absolute golden content on there. I mean, you're speaking to job seekers, aren't you? And God knows what. Yeah. So yeah, well done on that one. And we're just talking about the success of that as with Last Man Standing. So let me go back to data. So first of all, who is Mark Daniels? For those people who don't know him, who is Mark Daniels? Give us a quick sort of potted history, Mark.
God, who's Mark Daniels? So going right back to the sort of 90s, I started out in the IT tech space, security, web analytics, all of that type of thing. Before digital marketing was coined as a term, and enjoyed the what was called the dot boom. Also went through the dot bomb, and then following the dot bomb, did my biggest ever impulse purchase and actually bought a pub. Went to the pub on Friday night. By the time I got home, I said to my wife, I've bought the pub across the road. And she went, that's nice, dear. And then we had 8 years owning our own pub. And in that time, I transitioned into the hospitality sector, but have always focused on helping the hospitality sector with their digital marketing, data, CRM, communications, that side of things. So I've worked for breweries. I've worked with businesses like Wadworth. I've worked with restaurants, bowling alleys, that area, and at the moment I'm one of the COVID people, so I'm independent, doing some consultancy, and as you said, started my own podcast, which is actually just helping shine a light on people who are seeking their own roles. So that's where I am at the moment.
Wow, Mark, that was an expensive pint, wasn't it? Going to the pub, and I'd have to go and buying a pub. Yeah, God.
Yeah. It's just, like I say, we all do silly things when we've had a pint or two. Buying a pub was one of the more out there ways.
Absolutely. The show's not about the pub industry, but you do feel for the pub industry, don't you? I mean, quite clearly.
I've got so many friends in that sector at the moment, so many colleagues, as we all have in the hospitality sector at the moment, who are, at a time of year when they should be just having a brilliant time and being busy, and it's just a horrible period at the moment.
And most of them are throwing the beer away, aren't they? Just putting it down the drain within 24 hours if you're in London. Gosh,
send it my way. It doesn't even go down the drain.
Yeah, I was going to say don't bin it. Yeah, cook with it or drink it. One of the two. Yeah, cool. Right, let's talk about data. Let's talk about something interesting and positive. Yeah, for a change. Right. Okay, data. So as I was saying, it's sort of value in the data, Mark. And
yeah,
it's. I guess the problem is basically we've got all this data. We collect all this data. Whether you're a pub, whether you're a hotel, whether you're a coffee shop, whether you're Nigel Mann, we get all this data from emails and customers. And before, we used to have a roll index, didn't we? Yeah, and some cards. I remember those days. Rolodex, all the information was on there. So basically, what's the digital space now? How can we improve it? What can we do with it, etc., etc. Just talk me through it.
I think the first thing to sort of just talk about is data. It's data itself. A lot of people are scared of data. There's lots of danger in holding data. People panic about it a little bit. And I think for the purposes of our conversation today, obviously the bigger businesses, they have their processes in place. They have their CRM managers and their controls. I think for this, I think it's more about the smaller businesses who can be making a lot more out of the data. And today, in the modern world, we have access to collecting data from so many places. Most places now have got guest Wi-Fi. Today, we're all ordering on our phones. So there's points of contact for data. So there's lots of places for getting data into your business. And then you need to hold it in some form of CRM or CDP kind of platform. And that's where people get a bit scared and the complexities come in. So I think we need to take away the stigma of holding data, first of all. In terms of what is data for any business, the first thing to be aware of is you can only, under GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, you can only hold data that is pertinent to your business. So for a hospitality business, name, email address, maybe postcode, so they're within your area, date of birth, because we can obviously do communications around that. But then there are some areas that for the majority of the hospitality sector, you don't need to know the data, therefore you shouldn't be holding it. So picking on one a little bit obscurely, but sexuality, for example, it's not necessarily relevant to the hospitality sector, and therefore under GDPR is not a piece of data you should be asking for. So when it comes to your data, it's all about making sure you're getting the data that you need. And also the other thing to be aware of is don't hold data for data's sake. There's a lot of people who think I should be holding thousands of records, millions of records, whatever it might be. Yeah. There's no necessary value to that at all. And again, under GDPR, the guidance is you should not hold data that is no longer of relevance to your business. I'll come back to that a little bit later on, because that comes to your comment about tracking and reporting, which is another thing that's quite valuable in there. But let's just take away the complexities of data for a second. You only need to take the data that is relevant to your business, and you only need to hold the data that is continuing to give you and the prospect that the person that the data is themselves, the value. If you've got my data, I gave you my data 5 years ago, and I haven't opened an email in the last 3 years, then my data is not of value to you, and you should just delete it.
Okay. Let me take you back, Mark, because you're a techie. You're basically, you speak your own language. We have a conversation about GDPR, and I feel like I'm always working for Star Wars, God's sake. GDPR and CRM and God knows what. First of all, what does CRM stand for? Obviously, people who watch this don't work for hospitality. Don't work for So this goes out to universities in America and God knows what. We're getting all the emails about. What does Mark mean about CRM? So just
sure.
Tick that one for me.
So CRM, there's two acronyms now, which is it just makes life more complicated. CRM and CDP. CRM is a catch-all phrase. It's customer relationship management. It's effectively a tool for allowing you to communicate with your customers. It's as simple as that. And it is a safe space to hold data. So if you're going to collect data, and a lot of places possibly still do this, they certainly used to, the data comes in and they put it on an Excel spreadsheet, which is saved as a file on your hard drive. That's insecure. So what a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, allows you to do is hold that data in a safe and compliant manner.
Yeah.
CDP is kind of like the bigger brother. It's customer data portal. Probably not relevant so much to today's conversation, but to be aware of, it's effectively CRM is me communicating directly with you, Nigel, and CDP is me saying I want to communicate with everybody in the 45 to 50 bracket who's male, who lives in the CB7 postcode area. That's that's the core difference. But let's just stick with CRM for today. Customer relationship management, and it's the safe space for holding your data.
Yeah, so basically it's that relationship, isn't it? It's that relationship management, that customer relationship management, how you talk to your customers, how you hold your data. You know, we all know about the GDPR, you know, which is debatable like Baines, but obviously important. Okay, so why is it important to have a CRM then, Mark? What just talk me through that.
So CRM, not only is it the safe space to hold your data, but equally it's the history of the communication with that data, with that contact. So you would be able to log into your CRM and look up, for example, if we just talk one-on-one communications for a second rather than global, I might want to see when I last sent a marketing message to Nigel Mann. So I can pull up Nigel Mann in my CRM. I can have a look and see how long I've held your data for. I can see what communications I've sent to you. I can see whether you have opened those communications, and I can see whether you've engaged with those communications. So I get all the steps of understanding my business relationship with Nigel Mann. And that's valuable in lots of different ways, because if you, and as the conversation goes on, we'll go further down this line, but as you broaden that out, I start to learn what you open, which subject lines engage you, which subject lines don't engage you. And then I can start to target my communications, my marketing message to you, because I know that now you're interested in, I'm just being generic here, Nigel. I'm not saying this is what you're interested in. But now I can say, right, I know Nigel opens emails that say burgers, but doesn't open emails that say chicken, for example.
Cool.
And therefore, chicken is not relevant to Nigel Mann. So why send you an email? And this comes back to it's all about the quality of the data rather than the quantity.
Yes, it's all about targeted marketing. Let's get before we go on. Let's just bring some more people. Say hello to Guy, Rogers. Basically, morning, Mark. Morning,
Hi, Roger.
Morning. Hi, Roger. How you doing, Tristan? Tristan Griffiths. Yeah. Morning, everyone. Ex-chef turned digital marketer. Yeah. Know the feeling there, Tristan. Yeah.
Excellent. my wife will tell you that I will never be a digital marketer that becomes a chef. That's
there you go.
Happy
days.
Happen.
Yeah. He's good at marketing. He's rubbish at cooking. Yeah.
Rubbish at cooking.
There you go. We'll have to look over this one, Mark. There's a power in the data. Yeah. Great CRM systems and automation tools to keep on top of these data and valuable to them. Far too many businesses miss so many opportunities to collect them through. Yeah. I'll sort of pick up this one, Mark.
Nice typo there, Tristan.
Yeah, I mean, nice segue. I'm amazed, Mark, at how many people don't actually own a CRM system when I go to businesses. Yeah, people ring me in and go, you know, I think Tracy rung me from this company last week, and I think, you know, and it's all in their head. Yeah, so yeah. I'm amazed at how many people don't actually buy a CRM system.
So you don't have to buy one, Nigel. For the basic startups. So you're absolutely right. A lot of people probably do have. Remember, I said CRM is a bit of a catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
So if you're using MailChimp, you've got a very basic CRM in play there. But you don't. There's a few out there on the market that you can get started with without having to invest cash into, just a bit of time.
Yeah. Cool. Let me just bring in Paul. Paul says, Paul Rowe, listening to us, probably on Facebook or LinkedIn, I should imagine, yeah. Hi, Nigel, what about the safety? Hi, Paul, I haven't seen Paul for ages, yeah. Used to be a chef, yeah, back in the day. Hi, Nigel, what about the safety of data, especially when all kinds of establishments asked us to write in the information book during COVID? Here's one. I knew COVID had come on today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always going to come up. So The safety of data, I might be misunderstanding Paul's question here, but if you're using a CRM platform, your data is kept safe. Now, is Paul, sorry, Paul, are you referencing whether we are holding personal data that we should be or shouldn't be? Oh, I see. Sorry, I've reread that. So holding info in a book, so writing information in a book versus storing it online. It's you don't have to write it in a book, by the way. You can again use the CRM to hold COVID data. My recommendation here, though, would be to utilize one of the tracking systems available to you now. Either encourage everybody to use the NHS track and trace system instead of you having to write it in a book. Or if you are using, say, a guest Wi-Fi platform, they quite often have track and trace systems built into the front of them now. So you don't have to hold that data in the book in terms of holding the security of it then, because I agree, writing it down in a book, not really that safe. I would encourage to at very least use the NHS track and trace system rather than writing something down in the book.
Yeah, I suppose everyone can see the data, can't they? Everyone can see that, and basically, what happens if that book gets stolen? Not that you
it's
would,
a risk, yeah.
You've
got to keep that data for, I think it's 21 days. So you've got to keep that safe in the safe somewhere, or or I'd probably put my tea mug on it and spill tea on it or something like that.
Yeah, there's loads of systems out there, digital systems. Yeah, flooded the hospitality market. Very, very quickly. That quite clearly that can go digital. John Benson Smith is my wingman usually on a Tuesday. Always got something to say. Always got golden data, John. And I just edited his stuff yesterday. So misuse of data. Can have a long-lasting negative effect on customers.
If you abuse the data, you're abusing the customer's trust. Now, the other thing here, if you're holding data, so this is where we bring in a little bit of compliance. If you're holding data, you must be registered with the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO or ICO, depending on how different people want to say it. The ICO, sometimes seen as the big bad boys, they're there for the business's protection as much as they are the consumer's protection. I've had to have communications with the ICO over data before when we've made an error with data. Accidents happen. Human involvement is always going to be fallible. And the ICO is there. Now, even if you're a small business, I'd recommend that you register that you're holding data with ICO. It will cost you, it's very minimal for a small business. It's about £50 a year, but honestly, it's worth doing for your own protection as much as your customers. But absolutely, John, you know, misusing somebody's data, they'll really get upset. And the other thing to remember, though, in misuse of data, a lot of people forget that they gave you permission to use their data. And then if you have taken somebody's data, collected it through Wi-Fi or your website or an order pay app solution or something like that, and you've asked for permission to hold their data and you said yes, and then you don't communicate for 6 months for whatever reason, and then you send them an email, and they will then report that as misuse of data because they forgot they signed up. So that's where the ICO comes in to support you, and as long as you've got your correct compliance in your data collection, then you are protected.
Brilliant. Okay, so Mark, let's just move this on a little bit then. So who actually needs a CRM then? So who uses it?
Well, anybody who's holding data should have some form of CRM, some form of secure space. But also today, so take the world we live in at the moment. So hospitality is suffering very badly because of the COVID situation. Many businesses are closed now, and I do find this a little bit sad and as a data marketer a little bit frustrating. Businesses are closed and there's a lot of them not communicating with their customers. So they're not telling their customers what's going on while they're closed. They're not telling. Remember again, digital marketing, email marketing, comms, it doesn't have to be about selling all the time. It doesn't have to be about booking. It can just be informational. It can just be, guys, we're closed until X date. We are continuing to do this to ensure that when we reopen, we're COVID. Whatever the message is that you might want to do, it's just about keeping people up to date. And if you send an email once every other week while you're closed, if you're a tier 3 or we go back into some form of lockdown, if you just send an email once a week or once every 2 weeks, just saying what's happening, that has much more value of keeping your business in front of my mind as a consumer than just being shut for 6, 8, 4 weeks, however long it is. And then when you reopen, everyone goes, oh, where should I go tonight? And they've not thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at length yesterday about brand. Yeah, quite clearly.
Absolutely.
This sort of ties into your brand, doesn't it? About sort of getting the
it's
right message
part
out
of your
there,
brand.
talk to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Mark. Yeah, go on.
Sorry. Yeah, it's always the thing with online conversations, isn't it, Nigel? You talk across each other by accident. No, people think brand is your pretty logo, the sign above your pub, the way you've written your menu, and it is. That's part of brand. But also, brand is the bigger thing. I think it was Jeff Bezos from Amazon. He said, brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, and that's really important, because that's not just the smiley face from A to Z on the logo, but that's talking about something. So if you are sending a communication out regularly to your database, just telling them what you're up to, telling them you're still here, it might be a funny story. You could ask on your website through your social media people to send in things they're doing during your customers, what's happened during lockdown as there being a big birthday, and then use your email to tell those stories. It's all about just keeping your brand engaged with your consumer.
Yeah, so it's back to your temping bowling days. Yeah, you'd have been basically, doing all this stuff now, wouldn't you, during lockdown? While all the temping bowlings are basically in tier 3, and
my previous roles, whether they be in bowling, whether they be in the brewing industry, it's just about keeping that while the pubs are shut, while the bowling centres are shut, while the restaurants are shut, whatever it might be. So to give you an example, a restaurant near me, we're going out for dinner this Saturday under the COVID safe rules. But what they did during lockdown is they sent an email saying that they had put a safe outside space with heating, all put together. And we were like, well, that's brilliant, because that means we can still go out for dinner with the friends that we wanted to go out for dinner with just before Christmas. And if they'd not sent that email, I wouldn't have known that I could have that was even there as an option.
Yeah, it's telling that story, isn't it? It's telling you people that quite clearly can't see the pub, can't see the outside space, can't see the patio eaters, and the sort of, can't see the manager basically coming on and, sort of saying, hi, I'm Nigel Mann, this is what we're doing this week, and talking directly to your database, and quite clearly, all the way through.
You've just said a really key thing then, anyway, that's really the important bit. Anybody who's doing this sort of thinks, oh, I can't do that or whatever. It is just telling a story. It doesn't have to be more complicated than just telling a story of what's going on.
Yeah. Let's go back to some questions here, Mark. I mean, Tristan says basically hospitality venues should use their premises to create media, stay in front of customers and educate, create, and that's exactly what you were just saying, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It's about getting absolutely bob on there, Tristan. I don't know Tristan, so absolutely bob on those there, Tristan. It is exactly that, isn't it? It's about basically communicating with your customers, creating great media, creating those great stories, and
it's
sort
just
of
telling the story. Just telling the story. It doesn't always have to be about selling. I know that sounds a little bit sort of anathema to people who's like, I just want to get bookings in and stuff like that. The bookings will come if you tell the story.
Great. Okay. So Guy says basically use comms to reassure customers and communicate the journey with them. He's absolutely right, isn't he? Again,
yeah. And journey is a good word. Journey is, as you probably know, Nigel, in my podcasts at the moment, I seem to use the word journey an awful lot, but it is correct. It's you're taking these customers on a journey. So, and especially at the moment when you're changing things in your business to make it safer for people to visit, whether it be an outside space, creating more comfortable interior space, whatever it might be. That's the journey you're on, and you want to take the customers with it, so they want to come and see what you've done when you reopen.
Yep, cool. Thanks for that, Guy. Jason's on. He says basically, I agree. The CRM isn't part selling, can be getting to know the clients. Yeah, maybe just nicely win. Yeah, and brought together run the message. Yeah,
Yeah, it does. It again, absolutely, Jason. It's spot on in terms of. If you're a pub that has a particular loyal following of a sport or a team, then make that part of your communications.
Cool. Right, Mark. I want to move this on again, Mark. Yeah, I mean, thanks for that, guys. Thanks for the people that come on. It's just so. What's a good CRM? How do we set it up? What does it have to contain? What's the characteristics of it?
Well, there's lots of different ways to answer that question, actually, Nigel. A good CRM is somewhere where you can safely store your data, where you can get a good reporting on how that data is performing, to the point that just came up on the screen there about the history of your communications with your customers. Now, there's lots of different ways you can do this. You could use something really quite straightforward like MailChimp, which is more an email marketing tool, but it has a very minor CRM part to it. You could take it all the way through. Bigger businesses will be using things like Microsoft Dynamics or Blueven or something like that. But I would tend to say, look at something like HubSpot as a starting platform. For many small businesses, I love HubSpot as a small business user. And you can start with that really free, both from a CRM data collection and history piece, and it has email marketing built in to the free section as well. And while you've got a small amount of data, there is no cost to using that platform at all. As with all of these, whether it be MailChimp, HubSpot, Active Campaign, Campaign Monitor, or Active Campaign, any of those names I've just mentioned, they will start to ramp up costs as you start to use them more and more. But for so do research the pricing of all of those. But really, what you want CRM to be able to do: collect your data easily. What you don't want to be putting the data in manually. You want to be able to say, so when somebody logs into my Wi-Fi, I want that data to drop into my CRM. When somebody logs into my table ordering app, I want the data to drop in there. The CRM will merge that together. So using really simplified language, I log in through Wi-Fi. I also then place an order through the order pay. It now knows Mark Daniels. Now, what I've got then is I start to build up a history of the fact that Mark Daniels comes in at 6 o'clock on a Friday night every week. He orders a pint of a particular beer. I'm not going to use brands. I don't want to get into trouble. And he orders a burger and chips. And so you start to know what I order, and the CRM is holding all of that. Once that data starts to grow over time, you can then build different communications out off the back of that.
Brilliant. Okay. So let me just go back to a few more questions that's going to come through. Matt's saying basically, communication with customers is key, but important customers don't want junk email. Yeah,
absolutely, Matt. And that comes back to the understanding the data and customer's quality rather than quantity, and making sure you're sending the right customers. You don't want to use a term. You don't want to use spray and pray. If you've got 100,000 people in your database and you send all 100,000 people the same message, then you're only going to be interesting a small part of that data. So absolutely, Matt, poor quality communications will always lose customers.
Yeah, how to turn your customers off? Basically, just spray them with junk email that they don't want. Yeah,
And you don't want them pushing the spam button, because that just doesn't do your reputation any good. So. No. The other thing, you must, under regulations, ensure that you've got a clear unsubscribe option anyway. But unsubscribe, if a customer's going to go, you'd rather they unsubscribe than push the spam button. It's better for your reputation with the email service providers.
Yeah, cool. I sort of got 5 things where I did my research. Is sort of what it's there for is basically to create brand awareness is one of them. And basically the first step in acquiring new customers, acquiring leads, converting leads into customers, providing superior customer service. I'm trying to say that when you're drunk, and driving upsells. So those are the 5 things that basically are picked out of that. And if you're getting sprayed with junk email, we all scroll through our phones and we all pick up those emails and we think, how the hell have you got my email address? I'm not interested in a curly perm or the latest colour from L'Oreal. I don't dye my hair. I'm sure there'll be loads of feed on there that say I do, but quite clearly I don't. So why send me all those emails? It's just
absolutely. So again, that comes down to understanding your data and then sending the communication to the relevant segments in your data. The people that are. So, for example, we had a reference back earlier on to football or sports teams. Now, to be fair, not everybody in your database is going to be interested in sports, so they're not going to want to know if you're showing the match tonight. And if you're constantly sending me emails about a football match tonight, that doesn't interest me as an individual. So if that's all I'm getting, but you can, as you grow data, you can ask your customers for more data. Over time, you can sort of send a message saying, could you just fill in a little bit more information about yourself? And if I'm really bought into your brand, your business, your pub, your restaurant, whatever it is, I don't mind giving you a little bit more information. So if you say to me, could you just tell me, are you interested in football or not? And I go, no, then the CRM system will always know to not send me the information about football.
Yeah.
Or you tell the CRM to send the email to only people interested in football. Yeah. Sorry if that makes better sense.
And I guess the clever guys basically use their CRM very, very well for that, because quite clearly, we've all had sales managers, and basically, as a manager, you go, gosh, we're low on sales, go get me some sales, and they just press the button to all, So Mark gets it, Paul Rowe gets it, Tristan gets it, Guy gets it, Matt Hamilton gets it, everybody else gets it, and quite clearly, it's not relevant to them. So, that's when you start to lose customers, going back to Matt's comment. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tristan says, so many places basically missed opportunities to use their supply chain. They stay connected to customers and even teaching them to cook their usual meals at home. Yeah. So, there's a little bit of hidden messaging there, Tristan. I can assure you of that. Yeah,
that's his chef days coming out.
That's his chef days.
But it's again, it's good. It's a good story. It's a good journey to take the customer on, because at this time when you're closed and you can't be open. So tell me how to make my favorite meal. Well, again, my wife won't let me in the kitchen, but it gives you an idea. But it's an understanding of keeping the customer engaged while you've got the opportunity to tell that story. So it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think there's lots of chefs and lots of restaurants that pivot into that sort of market, into that delivery market. Quite clear, one of the restaurants in Birmingham, can't know the name, but he put out a box meal, box meal for £2.90, and you got the video, you got the recipe cards, you got a Michelin star restaurant that quite clearly you're cooking at home with the family, and what great entertainment, just fantastic. So one from Guy, we might have to look over the top of this one. I'll put it quickly on, then take it off. We might have to literally get on a chair here. So gosh, Guy, keep him sweet, Guy, keep him short. I agree with Tristan. While venues are empty, they become a studio. The venue can make leads, future engage with their customers. Chefs can show case by case, exactly what we were just saying there, isn't it? I'll take the top, Mark, just so we can see us. But,
that's what I was looking a little bit like Chad then. But it's again, that's taking your content to a wider audience. So that's engaging via the website, via social, using the email to drive people to those platforms to watch what you might be doing. It's a brilliant idea. It's just taking your venue and doing something different with it. So
I think basically the winners this year, or next year rather, are going to be those ones that are really into social media. Here's me doing a live broadcast with you. I never thought I'd do that. You know what I mean? Doing a podcast like you're doing, Mark. You're doing podcasts. When we spoke about that, you said, "Oh, shall I do a podcast, Nigel?" And absolutely fantastic.
Just a whimsical idea that's turned into something. It was literally something that popped into my head while I was driving, and I was like, nobody else is talking to people about this, so I'll see if it's got some legs. And it actually turns out it has. And I had, no idea where it was going to go. But the growth on social media, and off the back of that, I'm actually using a CRM to monitor people who are subscribing, people who are coming in, wanting to take part in the show. So again, I'm using HubSpot, just the free version, just to collect that data and make sure I'm communicating with people.
Brilliant. Gary says, great, interesting session, very useful, well done. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Okay, Mark. So how can we use this in hospitality? So we've got all this data. We collect on reception, we collect it with the restaurant, we collect it through check-in, ticking boxes, and we've got all this great data. So how can we actually use it in hospitality? Because that's what people want to hear, isn't it?
Well, so you can wrap that up with a few things that have been said, and a couple of the ideas that have come up on the screen from suggestions from people like Tristan have been brilliant as well. It's basically, I think the key thing for hospitality businesses, first of all, is don't be afraid to gather the data, and don't be afraid to tell your customers that you're out there. Now, from a hospitality perspective, or any business perspective, really, it doesn't, you can be a bit catch-all with this. Use it to tell the story about your business. Use it to say what changes you've made from COVID. The trick to making your data work for you is the subject line. If you think about when you receive email, what makes you open the email? I studied before I got into any of this. I wanted to be a journalist. That's how I started out life. Never worked. I was 38 before I actually got paid for writing something. But the key thing is that headline, that subject, that first few lines when I've opened the email. So the subject line has to get my interest, and then when I've opened it, you have to keep my interest with the first couple of lines in there. Otherwise, I'm not going to engage with your email. Now, subject lines themselves are for want of another term, subjective. Some work, some don't. They need to be snappy. They need to be. I'm sorry, Nigel. I'm getting
That's okay. That's all right.
There we go.
That's your first contract, Mark. Yeah.
It's coming in from a chap called Paul Holbrook, who is he's probably trying to ring me while watching this. But the whole thing is about opening, getting people to open the email. So it's the subject line.
Yeah.
And you can use different ways of doing this. And again, that comes back to understanding the data. So I might send Nigel Mann an email with the same content inside it, but based on my knowledge of you, your subject line might be different to the person who's just tried ringing me, who might have the same content inside, but I know he reacts to a different type of subject line. And you can use something called A/B testing to test which subject lines work better with your audience. And this is something the CRM uses to learn which subject lines open more than others. And then you get that data back, and then you can write your subject lines based on what you've learned your customers are engaging with.
Oh wow! So basically, say just say that again, Mark. What was it? AP?
It's called A/B testing. You will see it in any platform, whether across all of them, even the most basic ones usually have it. It's called A/B. You'll see it as A/B testing. And what that is you'll be sending the same message to your database, but you will put you can put loads of different ones in, but typically one or two or three different subject lines, and then see which subject line works. So the system will then send a sample out of one subject line, a sample out of the other subject line, see which one engages the test audience. And then if this subject line was the successful one, the larger audience that you've chosen then receives that subject line because it's proven to open to get a better open rate.
Yeah, cool. That sounds fascinating. I mean, basically, it's just testing the market, isn't it? And basically coming back and seeing exactly what works.
Testing the water, seeing what's send out an email. It might be we've got new outside space. Let's just use that as an example. Yeah. So we've got new outside space, and one might go out and it might say, Mark, check out our new table, our new table dining outside, and it's got my name in it. And the other one might just go out and say, new outside dining available. Now, personalization usually has a better engagement than non-personalization. So the use of my name in the subject line. Again, very easy to set up in any CRM email marketing platform. And so what you're working out from those two subject lines is whether putting personalization in has had a better engagement. Or if you don't use personalization, it might be something along the lines of new outside tables or come and eat outside, and see which one of those two messages has a better engagement.
Yeah, for me, Mark, works with red wine. You know what I mean? Yeah, say hello to red. if basically there's a classy, bullshit, inky Malbec on there, that's my man. I mean, the wine merchants are actually class of this, aren't they? They really are. So
if I know when you through what you're ordering on my ordering app that you buy red wine when you come in to my venue, I can then make sure that the subject line that goes out to you includes an offer on a good bottle of red wine.
On red wine, which goes into my shopping basket, which basically gives me a bigger shopping basket at Waitrose. I mean, I learned a lot about retail when I was with my last company, and that's exactly what they do. It's all about shopping basket. It's all about spend per head. It's all about basically things. Okay, let's just take some more comments. Can you send here a list of CRM with functions to have the maximum CRM staff? What's your introduction? She's talking to. I know who she talked to there. She talked to Tristan, and Tristan's very clever. I love this. Basically, guys are talking in the platform. Yeah, Tristan's very good. I love it. I love Tristan. You're an absolute genius, sir. Yeah, you're weaving in there your company. Yeah, and I'm going to put it on actually just to bring it up. There you go. Yeah, okay. Sam, we'll recommend it through. Yeah. There you go, guys. Yeah, it's on there. You can read that. Yeah, very effective, very sensible. There you go, Tristan. Yeah, you've got your comment. Jason says the videos. Yeah, Cook and Holmes boxes are great, but long term will not cook at home and buy them from a store and a restaurant. Only a thought.
Do you know what, Jason? That's a risk at the moment that we face anyway, with the fact that people can go and sit outside as a group of six at a friend's house and go and buy their beer from the supermarket. Is the risk going to be that when pubs are allowed to operate normally again, will people continue to just do that? I think that is just a challenge we face anyway as an industry, and by giving people these eat at home recipes and keeping engaged and finding other stories to tell, I think the majority of customers will want to come back to our businesses afterwards, even when and the fact that we've been helping them survive lockdown, tier 3, tier 2 restrictions throughout that period just makes most of them feel better about you as a business.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, Market Kitchen is the prime example there with Morrison's. Where basically we've got chefs now in cooking, good quality food, delivered right to your door. You take it from store, etc., etc. That delivery market, the home market, is here to stay. 40% of the market now through QSR restaurants are home delivery. So there will always be a need for tables and chairs, but there is a massive leap now, 5 years forward, on the delivery market. Another show, another time. Let's go back to data. So Steve says basically reactive commercial marketing has been key, especially with larger hospitality groups, to keep guests up to date of regional specific restrictions and lockdowns. How it could be impact there. The online presence has been key.
Absolutely. And at the moment, again, with these changing tiers, these new rules, obviously today tier 3 is coming in a large part of the country. You should continue to tell people what's happening. We all know as human beings that if we know what's happening, we're less scared of what's happening. If we don't know what's happening, we're all a little bit anxious. So don't be afraid. If you've got this data and you've set up a CRM, you've got the ability to communicate, don't be afraid to do so.
Okay. Mark, you okay for 10 minutes or so? You okay?
Yeah.
You're doing a John Benson Smith on me. You're doing a Ken Dodd show at 12 o'clock. So yeah.
No, let's not do that.
No, let's not do that. Fine. Okay. So just a couple of quick ones for me, really. Is it expensive, Mark? It sounds expensive. Is it expensive?
Genuinely, the biggest expense with most of this is your time. Then the rest of it really depends on how long is a piece of string and how much you want to spend. The more you want to do yourself and keep it in-house, then it's more time expense than physical cost. The other attribute to that is obviously which platform you are choosing, because they have different ones. So do some research on the different platforms, because I've mentioned a couple of names and their budgets vary from £15 a month to £150 a month and above. But if you wish to go out and introduce a member of staff to do it, or bring in an agency to do it, then your costs start to go up. But if you've not started yet and you've got the capacity and the time to start now, then the cost is more your time than it is a physical cost.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. And how do we start by doing this? Is there a certain person to contact? Is there a specialty company, or
Well, Tristan's probably messaging in the comments to say to get in touch, but you could people can drop me a line. I'll happily point them in the right direction. I can either do some of the setup for them, or I can just point them where they need to go. There is no specific company. There's lots of options out there for you, from small agencies to online platforms to big companies, depending on the size of your business. So do your research, but also work out what you want to do. Now, the chances are you are probably collecting data. If you're using a guest Wi-Fi solution, for example, you are probably already collecting data, even though you're not doing anything with it, and it will be sitting most likely with your guest Wi-Fi provider. If you've got a website, you've already got a channel that you can collect data through. If you're using an order table app solution, one of the many that's out there, you're collecting data that way as well. You're already collecting the data. The chances are you probably just don't know where it is. So if you're using those platforms, go to them and ask them where the data is held, and ask them if they will be able to send it to your CRM system that we can get set up. That's where to start. Look at where you might be collecting data already.
Mr. Daniels, you're an absolute specialist. Yeah, let me put your details up if you want to get on to Mark. So you can read this actually, Mark. Yeah, because I'll share with you. I couldn't spell it this morning. Mark changed it on me, so you can read this for your sins. There you go.
You can email me on mark@desperatelyseekingsalary.com. This is the podcast name, which is the email address I'm also using at the same time. You can either go to the website desperatelyseekingsalary.com and drop me a line through the online form that's there. Email me on this email address. I'll happily get back to people and just point them in the right direction and give them a list of platforms to have a look at.
Mr. Daniels, as usual, sir, you are an absolute font of knowledge. I love talking to you about data. I'm quite geeky myself, as you know. I love the data. I love the sort of going into meetings and basically bringing up the data from you. So thank you very much, sir. Yeah, thank you for your time. Yeah, no problem at all. Absolute gold there. So guys, if you want to go to Mark Daniels, obviously I'll just put that back on again just to make sure it's Mark at Desperately Seeking Salary, which is his podcast's email address as well. So if you want to go on that show, please give him a call. Yeah, and basically, if you want to come on with any gold, speak to Mark. He'll sort you out from start to finish. Mark Daniels, sir, thank you very much. Yeah,
thanks, Nigel.
Just leaves me to say thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. And yeah, we'll see you next week. See you next Tuesday at 12 o'clock. Speak shortly.